He said I was his safe space. And the stupid part is, I believed him. Because when you've spent most of your life being edited down to the version people can tolerate, the first person who says, you don't have to filter with me, feels like a lifeline. His name was Daniel. We met at a statewide educators conference, the kind with name badges, burnt coffee, and breakout sessions where no one really listens. He was leading a panel on emotional literacy through literature. I was just attending. He said something about how students don't need us to be perfect. They just need us to be present. And I remember thinking, when was the last time someone said that and actually meant it? After the session, I approached him, complimented his talk. We spoke for 5 minutes. That turned into 10, then 30, then exchanging emails under the fluorescent lights of a half-empty conference hall. It started with book recommendations. He sent me poems he loved. I sent him essays I wrote but never published. We both loved Neruda. We both thought the word soft had been unfairly treated by the world. One night he sent me this. There's something about the way you think that makes me feel safe, like I don't have to perform. I reread it 3 times before responding. I told myself it was just emotional honesty, that adults could have intense conversations without ulterior motives. Then came the late night messages, the voice notes, the inside jokes, the I can't sleep, can I tell you something random? And eventually, he created a private messenger group with just the 2 of us. Named it Safe Space. He said, so I never lose track of where I feel most real. And I smiled like a fool. I knew he was married. He told me up front, said it wasn't a fairy tale, said his wife was kind, smart, beautiful, but that sometimes being seen and being loved are not the same thing. I didn't ask questions. I didn't push. Because part of me liked being the one he came to when the rest of his life got too loud. We never called it an affair. There was no sex. Just hours of emotional intimacy that tasted too much like love to be anything else. He'd send photos of the books he was reading, with my notes stuck in them. He once wrote, you're the margin in every story I'm trying to write. He started calling me Jay. I started saving our messages in a hidden folder. When his wife went out of town, he'd call me and talk for hours. Not dirty talk, just talk. About the boy he used to be, about how exhausting it was to be admired but never understood. I listened because I understood, and I told myself maybe love doesn't always need to be declared to be real. The first time we met in person after the conference, it was at a coffee shop downtown. He said it was just coffee, and I nodded like I didn't already feel the weight of that word. He showed up in a wool coat and a scarf, too nice for someone who claimed he didn't care what people thought. We talked about everything, his students, my fear of public speaking, why we both hated small talk. When we left, he touched my shoulder and said, I always feel lighter after seeing you. I smiled, and I hated how much that one sentence carried me for the rest of the week. From there, it became routine. Short walks, bookstores, late-night phone calls that started with only for a minute and ended at 2 a.m. He never kissed me, never held my hand, but there were times he'd rest his knee against mine and forget to move it. Times he'd read me something from his journal and pause before the part that mentioned me. In the group chat, he sent voice notes where he laughed with his whole chest, a sound he told me his wife hadn't heard in months. I wish I could be this me all the time, he once whispered. And I didn't know what hurt more, that he couldn't or that he wouldn't. I told myself it was okay, that maybe I didn't need the title, that maybe being his escape was enough for now. We met in his car once, parked by the waterfront. He brought takeout. We talked for hours, windows fogging up, my name on his lips, more times than I'd ever heard it in one night. Before I got out, he said, you're the only place I don't feel like I'm failing. I went home and cried. Because I wanted to believe it, because part of me did. At school, I walked hallways knowing the person I wanted most had a whole life with someone else. And still, he texted me during staff meetings. Wish we were in safe space right now. You'd make this stupid seminar bearable. I hate being impressive. I'd rather just be with you. I'd smile quietly, phone tucked in my lap, heart loud in my chest. It didn't feel wrong. It just felt like something too quiet to survive in daylight. It was a Thursday afternoon. A colleague of mine, Mark from the history department, sent me a link. You know this guy, right? Your buddy from that teacher conference? He's all over my feed today. I clicked it. Didn't think, didn't expect, just tapped the link and watched The video opened with soft music, drone footage over a lake, flower petals, slow motion, a caption across the screen, 10 years, one vow. A love that never needed rehearsal. My stomach dropped, and then I saw him, Daniel, wearing the same smile he gave me when he read poetry out loud, only this time it wasn't for me. He stood under a floral arch, holding his wife's hand, renewing his vows. Guests clapped, he cried, and in the background their music swelled. I don't remember what was said. I only remember one line from his voiceover. With you, I have always been safe, always home. I paused the video, but it was too late. I had already heard it, already felt it rip something open inside me. He had used the word safe, not to describe our space, not to describe me, but to describe a life he had never paused, only compartmentalized. I scrolled down, thousands of likes, dozens of congratulatory comments. You two are everything, a decade of love, and it shows. Real men like this still exist. I closed my laptop, slowly, like it might explode if I moved too fast. I didn't cry right away. I just sat in silence, with my phone beside me, still buzzing from his latest message. Long day. Wish I could hide in our space tonight. I looked at the name of the group chat, Safe Space, 2 members, and for the first time I felt trapped inside it. Like I had willingly walked into a room with no windows and believed it was a garden. I didn't block him. I didn't confront him. I didn't even reply to his wish I could hide in our space tonight message. I just stared at the name of the chat, Safe Space. 2 members, one pretending it was intimacy, one pretending it was enough. And that's when I knew this wasn't a love story. It was a confession booth, and I was just the priest with no power to forgive. The next morning, I didn't reply as quickly. When he asked how I was doing, I said, fine. When he sent a photo of the sunrise from his run, I heart reacted, nothing more. By day 3, he noticed. Are you okay? Did I do something? Talk to me, please. I typed. Deleted, typed again, then finally sent. I was a group chat. She was the vow. No punctuation, no dramatics, just the truth. He didn't reply for 4 hours. And when he did, it was, please don't shut me out. This space is all I have that feels real. And that's when I realized something brutal. He never saw me as real. Just a softer reflection, a place to rehearse who he wished he could be without ever becoming it. I downloaded the chat history, every message, every voice note, every soft good night and accidental I miss you, saved it all. Named the folder, Unspoken Vows. Zip. I didn't know what I'd do with it yet, but I knew this. When someone builds a house inside you, then moves into someone else's castle, you don't burn your heart down. You take the blueprint and you show the truth to the architect's wife. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, not my bed. Somehow that felt less intimate, less like waiting for someone to return. The folder sat on my desktop, Unspoken Vows.zip. I hadn't opened it since saving it. But I knew what was inside. Every good morning that only I received, every 2 a.m. voice note, every blurry photo from his classroom, captioned, only sent to you, and the name of the chat, bold at the top of every screenshot, Safe Space. I opened my laptop at 2:12 a.m., typed a subject line about your husband's safe space to her personal email. How did I get it? He once sent me a calendar invite for a school fundraiser. Her email was CC'd. He probably didn't even realize, or maybe he didn't care, because in his mind, I was the secret that would always protect him, even from myself. I attached the folder, hovered over the send button, not out of hesitation, out of mourning, not for the relationship, but for the version of me that kept thinking he'd choose better, choose me. I wrote one line in the email body. If I was just the place he came to breathe, maybe you deserve to know who he becomes when you're not in the room. I didn't sign it. Didn't leave a name. Didn't need to, because this wasn't about vengeance. It was about witnessing. And if she had spent 10 years thinking her life was safe, she deserved to know what else he called that word. I clicked send. The moment after felt like an exhale I hadn't taken in months. Not relief, not pride, just stillness. Like I had finally stopped holding my breath for a man who never offered air back. By Monday, he stopped messaging. No good morning. No long day rants, no voice notes at 10:43 p.m. with a whispered, "I wish you were here." Just silence. I thought I'd feel triumphant, like some twisted sense of justice had finally been served. Instead, I felt clean, like wiping down a foggy mirror and seeing your full face for the first time. Tuesday afternoon, Mark from history leaned against my classroom door. "You hear about Daniel?" I blinked. "What about him?" "He's taking a personal leave. Indefinite. School's not saying much." My chest stayed still. My hands didn't flinch. I just nodded. "Hope he's okay." Mark shrugged. Whole departments whispering something about a professional conduct review. And that was it. No explosion, no flame, just smoke. Thick and slow, filling the cracks of a reputation that had too many holes already. That night, I got a message from an unknown number. It was her, his wife. "I know who you are. I know what you gave me. I don't need an apology. Just thank you." I stared at it for a long time. She didn't curse, didn't ask why, didn't ask how long. Just thank you. And that hit harder than anything Daniel ever said. The next day, someone edited the faculty group chat name. What used to be team building was now damage control. I didn't say a word. I just clicked on the chat name I hadn't touched since Saturday. Safe space, one member. And I left it. That weekend, I opened a blank document. Not a diary, not a revenge blog, just a submission form for the annual Educators Ethics Conference. The theme this year, invisible influence when silence shapes systems. I didn't name Daniel, didn't name myself. I titled the piece, "What It Means to Be a Quiet Love." I wrote, "He called me safe. He built a space where I could be honest, but only if I promised never to ask for anything real. He let me love him like a locked drawer, reachable but never open in daylight." And I did. For too long, I didn't end the piece with anger. I ended it with this. Some people will say I ruined a marriage, but that would mean it was intact to begin with. I didn't speak up to destroy him. I spoke so I could hear myself again. If your love can't stand in the sun, maybe it was never built to last. The essay went viral in our circle. Shared, quoted, pulled into discussions on boundaries, vulnerability, and professional ethics. A few days later, I was asked to speak on a panel. Not as the other man, not as a warning, but as a voice. A full, clear, unhidden voice. I didn't look back at the old chat, didn't wonder if he'd write again. Because the best revenge is never humiliation. It's disappearance, the kind that leaves no door open, no window cracked, just silence. And the echo of the truth you were once afraid to say out loud. I didn't delete the folder. I moved it, out of sight, into a drive labeled Stories I Outgrew, because that's what it was now. A story, not a wound, not a hope, just a closed book on a higher shelf. I changed apartments, nothing dramatic and still in the same neighborhood, but higher up. More light, less memory soaked into the carpet. I repainted the walls myself. Blues and creams, no more grays, no more dull greens that whispered, "Keep your head down." I bought a couch that was too big for one person, and I kept it anyway. Because space no longer scared me, I joined a local writing group. Not because I wanted to process anything, just because I missed hearing stories that didn't have anything to do with me. We met on Thursday nights in the back room of a bookstore. One night, the prompt was, "Write about the place where you became your own." I wrote about a coffee shop where two knees once touched for too long and then never touched again. I didn't cry. I read the piece out loud, and when I looked up, no one looked away. Someone in the group asked if I ever considered publishing. I said maybe, because for the first time, my voice didn't feel like a whisper looking for permission. It felt like sound. His name was Theo. I met him after a writing group session. He wasn't part of the group, just worked at the bookstore. He complimented a line from my piece, said it reminded him of a poem by Ocean Vuong. I smiled. "You like ocean?" He grinned. I breathe ocean. It was so dorky, so real. We started talking, not texting, not flirting, not that performative will we, won't we stuff, just talking about writing and grief and what it feels like to outgrow a version of yourself you once begged the world to love. He listened, really listened, not with pity, but with presence. He never asked if I was okay now. He didn't touch my arm when I paused. He didn't try to fix anything. He just nodded and said, "That's a lot to carry. You must be stronger than you think." And I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because I realized I hadn't heard someone say that without trying to take something from me in return. We started having lunch sometimes, then tea, then walking home together in silence. He never asked what happened. I never explained, because he never made me feel like I was a question to solve, just a sentence he wanted to sit with. A few weeks later, I was invited to read at a local storytelling night. Nothing fancy, no spotlight, just a mic, a stool, and people leaning forward and folding chairs. I brought a short piece called "The Room with Two People and No Windows." It wasn't bitter, wasn't accusatory. It was about a chat, a space, a voice that kept shrinking itself to fit someone else's comfort, and how one day that voice walked out. I didn't shake, didn't trip over the words, because they weren't stuck anymore. They belonged to me now. When I finished, there was no applause at first, just stillness, then a quiet snap, then another, then the whole room breathing as one. I looked up. In the third row, Theo, he didn't smile big, didn't mouth, "Well done," didn't give me a thumbs up. He just nodded, like he was saying, "You did it," without needing to say anything at all. That night, I walked home alone, not lonely, just mine. And when I got in, I didn't check my phone, didn't open old chats, didn't read old letters. I sat on the floor, lit a candle, and said out loud to no one in particular, I wasn't a safe space. I was a whole house. I saw him again in the most ordinary place, the corner of an indie bookstore. I was there for the Thursday night reading group. He was just standing between two shelves, thumbing through a paperback like the past didn't burn behind him. He looked older, not drastically, just a little more tired around the edges. Like shame had been resting on his shoulders too long and had started to change his posture. He looked up, saw me, and froze. I didn't flinch, didn't duck, didn't shrink like I used to. I just tilted my head slightly, like you do when you recognize a song from a playlist you haven't listened to in years. He approached slowly. "Julian," he said, soft, careful. Like the name might shatter. I waited. He swallowed. "You look good." I nodded. "I do." Silence, the kind that used to choke me. Now it just sat beside me like a guest I chose to allow. "I've wanted to say something," he continued, "but I figured silence was safer." I raised an eyebrow. "You always did prefer safety," he winced. "That's fair. I never meant to hurt you," Daniel said. I looked at him. Really looked, not with longing, not with hope. Just clarity. "You never meant for me to be seen," I replied. "That's the part that hurt." He opened his mouth, closed it. "You were my safe space," he said, voice lower. I shook my head. "No, I was your secret storage, a drawer, a room you stepped into when you were too exhausted to perform." Daniel winced again, but he didn't deny it. "I lost everything," he said after a moment. "My wife, my job, my reputation," I offered. He nodded, "And I'm sorry for all of it." I studied him. He looked genuine, but genuineness isn't always enough when it comes after consequences. "You're not sorry for what you did," I said. "You're sorry it finally stopped working." Silence again. This time he didn't try to fill it. He glanced down, then up. "Are you happy now?" I smiled, small, soft. "True, I'm free," he nodded, eyes glassy. "I read your piece." "The essay." I raised an eyebrow. "Which one?" He half laughed. "Guess there are more now." "There will be more." He looked like he wanted to say something else. Something final, something salvaging, but he didn't. He looked at me one last time. There was no apology in his eyes anymore, just a kind of resignation. Like he had finally realized the one person he used to run to no longer stood still waiting. "I'm glad you're writing," he said. "I'm glad you're reading," I replied. We didn't hug, didn't shake hands, just stood there, two men who once believed in the same lie. And then he walked away. This time I didn't watch him go. I turned back toward the reading room. Theo was there. He didn't ask, "Was that him?" He just moved his bag from the seat beside him, and I sat down. The moderator introduced the next reader. I didn't hear the name. I was too busy letting myself breathe, not because he was gone, but because he no longer took up space in me. 6 months later, I was invited to speak at a national educators conference. This time I wasn't attending. I wasn't the quiet teacher with the thoughtful questions. I was the keynote. The theme, redefining integrity in education. I stood behind the curtain before walking out, microphone already clipped to my shirt, notes in my pocket, but I wouldn't need them because this story, I'd lived it. I walked onto the stage, lights weren't too harsh. Applause was kind, not explosive. I scanned the room, a sea of faces, and somewhere in the middle row, Theo. Notebook in hand, smile in place, I smiled back. Just a little, enough, I began. I used to think silence made things sacred, that privacy was the same as protection. But I learned the hard way. Some things are kept quiet not because they're precious, but because they're shameful to the person who's hiding them. The audience didn't shift, they leaned in, I kept going. I was told I was a safe space, but I was actually a cover story, a hallway between what he wanted and what he refused to admit. I paused at the end of the speech, not for effect, just to breathe. The last lines came out steadier than I expected. If you are someone's secret, someone's midnight relief, someone's unspoken sanctuary, I want you to know something. You are not the weak one for wanting more. You are not the selfish one for asking to be seen. You are not the destroyer of their story. You are the survivor of your own. The applause wasn't thunderous. It was still, deep, like something sacred had been broken and shared. I stepped off stage. Theo was waiting just outside the curtain. He didn't say, "You were amazing." He said, "That was you," and that was enough. That night, I walked home alone, but no longer wondering who might text, no longer needing a room with locked doors and quiet promises. I had the world now, unfiltered, unearned, unhidden. If this story found you where it hurts and helped you remember that your voice matters, don't forget to subscribe, not just for the next story, but because someone else out there still thinks they have to live in lowercase. And your presence here might just give them permission to speak louder. You are not a safe space. You are the whole world someone was afraid to admit they needed.